1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Lay It on the Table, the Southern Board Game Podcast with the accent on Southern. As per usual, folks, I am Joe Mahaffey. I'm your host, coming to you live. Well, not by the time you see it, from this new set background. So we'll talk about that maybe, maybe not. And of course,
Very nice.
as always with me on a regular basis is...
I'm James Engelhardt. Good evening, Joe. It's good to be here. I see the new set. Looks fabulous.
It is great to be here. Yeah,
this throwback tech. Yeah.
Well, that's always been back there, but it's always been kind of hidden because of the way that they tighten up the screen. But yeah, so that is the Mac that I used at Wofford College.
Oh wow, nice. I've heard of that place.
I desktop published my way to a history degree.
Well done, sir. Well,
literally. Anyway, that is not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about board games.
Indeed,
and
we
so
are.
I have a few news and notes that I want to get into before we get into it, because I saw this from Professor DM. I'm going to call him a friend of the show. I don't know if he's a friend of the show, but he's been on our show. So we're going to talk to him we're going to talk at him about him like he's a friend of the show. So anyway, he was talking about Seamon being in trouble. And Seamon, of course, is a very well-known game publisher. They have the Zombicide IP as well as a number of other IPs. They are in bankruptcy mode. And they have kind of stopped production on everything except they're trying to get the Kickstarters that they have in production out, which if you look at their website, there's a good many of them.
Oh, yeah.
And very well-known properties, whether it's Zombicide or Dune, et cetera. In fact, Wargamers is saying today that Asmodee or however you want to say it, has actually bought the Zombicide IP from Seamon.
Okay.
And you would think that this is just a story about the tariffs, but it's not. Because from what I can tell by Professor DM's video and just some of the other things I've seen, some other sources that I look at, they have been constantly robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yes, that sounds
in
like
the sense that they'll do a Kickstarter. The Kickstarter that they're working on that they got to get out runs a little bit behind, and so they take money from another Kickstarter to get that one delivered, and so they're always in this sort of pay it forward or pay it backwards kind of model, however you want to consider that. So they don't have this FIFO model and all that, and they did that under the guise of, well, we didn't want to ask our people for more money, but then I think the tariffs probably put them in an unsustainable situation.
Yep.
And so, but I would imagine that there might be a number of publishers out there that have kind of got themselves caught up in that trap. And so we're probably going to see a lot more consolidation around, where companies like Asmodee are going to come to the table. They've got some cash, maybe they've got some capabilities, and they're going to scoop up at least the IPs that are worth it. But what's interesting to me is that Seamon is a publicly traded company. I believe they're on the Hong Kong exchange. And it's not like they're just a mom and pop publisher working out of a Kickstarter, So I'm just not really sure how their fiduciary thing fell apart.
Well, and this has been a model for a lot of game companies. And this is why we don't see, this is why game companies come and go pretty quickly in a lot of cases. Because they do let their head get ahead of their feet, and away they go. And it's not uncommon to hear people talking about, they needed to have this Kickstarter to fulfill the last Kickstarter, really. And you're always, as you said, robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're one step ahead of the law there, as it were. And it's not. I think that the difficult thing to do is, once you've gone down that road, to catch back up with yourself, to get your feet back under you, right?
No, 100%. It's unsustainable. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And Yeah, and I was talking with Laura today about, and with Sky a little bit too, about the ways that, um, like Stonemaier seemed very rigorous about not doing that. And the other thing, I mean, the other
Mhm.
thing, if you think about Seamon, you think of them as, they start out as Cool Mini or not, and it was minis intensive and lots of extra chrome and all the extra fun stuff. And you had to wonder, I did, like, how are they pulling this off exactly? And I guess the answer is they weren't entirely. So there
Yeah, I
you
mean,
go.
it's obviously the cost of labor and the places of production have
Sure.
for all intents and purposes been relatively cheap. But I
Yeah.
think that it's always the Kickstarter phenomenon became it's almost like the influencers on whether it's TikTok or Instagram or any of those, where they're always trying to outdo each other with their production values, but there's a price point that people are willing to pay.
Hmm.
And I think that they just sort of got caught up in that whole piece. But I don't think, in looking at so there's a couple things I'm going to put in the show notes. Obviously, there's Professor DM's video on this that I think is
Hmm.
worth a watch, because he's also talking about it as a creator. And the tariffs are a big part
Sure.
of this. So, I mean, although the tariffs
Yeah.
have come down from 145% to 30%, 30% to a maker that didn't bake that into their model
Yep.
or is just not in a position to deal with that, that is going to be
Right.
problematic. But it's also like Professor DM is talking about, his Deathbringer IP that he would like to build some really nice content around, but he's going to have to limit it to the book just because of the way that the tariffs are working. That is like a 7% tariff or something like that. I'd
Yeah.
watch the video for the fact check on that. But I also did see that Jamie Stegmaier from Stonemaier Games did publish an update yesterday on the 9th about where they are with the tariff update and the position that the Gamma is taking to Washington tomorrow or this week or soon on that
Oh,
behalf. So
right. Yes.
that continues.
Yep. No, that's going to be good. Um, and I had a couple of, speaking of Kickstarters that were kind of on hold, and then it dropped back down to 30. They were like, press, just mash that go button as fast and hard as they
Yep.
could. And
Yep.
so, yeah. So we'll see how that happens.
Yeah, we will. I just think it's just a story. I don't want this to be the whole thing about the tariffs, although we might want to look at maybe seeing if we get Jamie to come on when it all settles and kind of do a retrospective with him. I don't want to bother him right now because he's investing a lot of time and his personal treasure
Yes.
in an industry that he cares about. And I think, it's one of those things that I will say this. I did note in Jamie's update that they are working
Hmm.
with Panda, and Panda is looking to move production to Brazil.
Yep.
And that could be very interesting
And
to see how that
I
pans
said it.
out.
And other places have moved to Vietnam, or they've gone to parts of Mexico. I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah,
like not exactly near shoring, but
but Brazil would be really interesting, at least for here in the States, because if you could get a high quality production out of Brazil and then it ships from, say, Rio de Janeiro or wherever they would ship out,
hmm,
at least into the East Coast, that would be a pretty fast turnaround. I mean, if you think
that
about
would.
some of the games, possibly. Anyway,
Hmm.
just thought it was kind of interesting. But there are a lot of different things going on. So I think I told everybody a while back that I'd gotten an update from DM Dave about this badge quest
Yes.
Kickstarter thing that I had backed. And I love the badge quest storyline. And it's like Girl Scouts and Scooby-Doo meets D&D. And I've had a lot of fun
Hmm.
teaching this game at a couple of different, well, it's a RPG, right? So playing this RPG at different venues. And it got sold to One Hit Press,
Hmm.
allegedly.
Hit Point Press, right?
And I'm sorry?
Is it Hit Point Press?
Hit Point Press. I'm sorry. Yes, correct. I don't
Yep.
have the
No
notes in
worries.
front of me. Thank you. I knew that's why.
I got
That's
your
why I
back,
have
man.
you.
I'm scanning the
That's
notes right now. That's what I'm.
That's why I have you here. Anyway, so Dave just put out an alert. I don't know, about a month ago, maybe, saying that that fell
Okay.
through. He's back in charge and he's going to honor everything that everybody paid for, which was great because
Oof.
I paid for everything. I wanted the minis. I wanted the books.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to be able to do this right, and we're back on track.
But man, that's a whole different thing. If you're just one guy trying to do this stuff, and there's a reason you want a team around you when you're trying to work on all this stuff. That's just a heavy lift.
We've never had Dave Hamrick on the show, and I'd love to get him on just to really talk about that because I think he's got a little bit more resource around him than it would imply. I think it was more opportunistic. I mean, he's not unfamiliar with this whole thing. He is not
Sure.
He is not the one man show that Dan Halligan is, but he's not Stonemeyer either. I don't honestly know how it's structured, but I know he's not a one man operation. So, but I was happy to see that he got the IP back and that he was going to honor those things, because I had actually put a thing in there chat saying, hey, I was told to do this and get a hold of Hit Point Press, and they were going to contact me, and never heard from them. So I was beginning to think, okay, well, there's a grift in here somewhere. And knock on wood, I have not been grifted yet by Kickstarter.
Right.
I thought I was once with the chess, but I got it.
It took that was a journey. Yeah.
Yes. It was a hot minute, but it was chess. It's not like I was waiting for, Wingspan, the Mars edition.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's the Birds of Mars. Yeah.
Yes. The Birds of Mars. Now everybody's going to start looking for that.
And the Birds of Mars. I like this idea. Okay.
Well, I will say this. No. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you could still play chess. There are plenty of chess sets out there. Yeah.
Exactly.
If they don't deliver that one, yeah. But
there's Harry Potter chess, there's Civil War chess, there's Revolutionary War chess, there's Napoleon chess, there's
The Simpsons. Yeah.
So lots of chess.
There should be an oddledge. Anyway, yes, many chess set options. Yeah.
Yes. I did want to just put in the show notes too. I noticed that Brookie and the team at Game Toppers are putting out Game Toppers 5.0. And what's really notable, and the game table that I have is a Game Topper game table. We love our table. We've had it for years now. And Brookie's finally gotten to a point of scale where he's able to offer pre-pandemic pricing on the game tables.
Oh, that's awesome.
So just thought I would put it out there. We don't get it. There's no affiliation here, but they come in a lot of different shapes and sizes and options, and and I can tell you, I love having
Sherlock Holmes.
Yep, that's their nomenclature, and we have the it's the Moriarty, I think.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
It's the 48 by 72.
Oh no, that's the Mycroft.
Yeah, the Mycroft. Thank you. Yes. But the Mycroft includes the Moriarty table.
Oh, okay. And these are just these are ones just go on top of your table, right? So these are table toppers.
So there are a couple of different ways you can do it. So when I first got it, it was just you put it on a table.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have this little round table that I bought from Wayfair that's on wheels, and we keep it in a 48 by 48 configuration, but I can up it to a 48 by 72 configuration by just having an insert put in.
Right.
Then they offered us this leg kit, which I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. So we've used the leg kit, but because of the way it's just usually Dale and I playing, we keep it at the 4x4 kind of range.
Sure. Makes sense.
But we've taken it places where we've set it up that way. The 48 by 72.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course you've got the perimeter around it that you can put that holds your cards, and then you have places for like your beer glass or your wine glass and things like that. So it came with different things. And then there's different mats you can put in the middle We generally
Mm-hmm.
keep it on generally keep it on a green terrain.
Okay.
But I have one that looks like water, and I have one that looks that
Nice.
came with Foundations of Rome. They had a custom one that was part of the Kickstarter that fits the table. So I thought it was
Yeah,
cool.
I'm seeing a bunch of. You can get Ryan Lockhat and Amber Sharf, all kinds
Yep.
of fun folk.
Yeah. But anyway, I just think it's a really cool um thing that they've done, and I like that they've got a new one coming out. And so if you like those kinds of things, it's worth taking a look, particularly given the prices are gotten pretty low, although they're still pretty
Yeah.
expensive. But
I mean, yeah.
it folds up really. They're high quality. I can tell you this. They're made of a very like aviation quality aluminum. They don't dent. They have cases that are really high quality. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been able to pack this up in a case, throw it in the back of my car, and take it to the beach, literally.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So, anyway,
And you've had it
good stuff.
for years and years at this point, it sounds like, right?
I'm trying to think when we got it. It was I ordered it. I backed it before the pandemic, so that would have
Okay.
been in like 2018, 2019, and it literally showed up on my doorstep. Remember that March when everybody just went inside and didn't come out for a while?
Yep.
2020.
Yep. That's the
This thing
one.
showed up this thing showed up April 3rd. It was
Okay,
like
so it's
the last time that they could get a shipment out during the pandemic. UPS showed up. I got the table. I set it up, and we literally been playing this table since the pandemic.
wow. So
So
that's
5 years. I've
five
had it for
years of
5 years.
abuse. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, it's definitely. I buy some things that might be considered frivolous from time to time.
As do we
This
all.
was not one. This was
Yeah. No,
not one
that
of them.
looks awesome.
Yeah. And they're just super nice. But they're out of Minnesota. They're highly responsive. And in fact, when I backed one of the leg things and got some things, Brookie was kind enough to just acknowledge, wow, you've been our customer for a while, and he threw a nice thing in. He didn't have
Oh,
to do it. I
nice.
didn't ask him to do it. So I mean, he's just good people. Just good people.
Yeah. 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 Oh, that's fantastic.
So
And
anyway,
there, and that's
that
going to be
is
running through. It looks like about a month, July 11th, 2025.
yeah.
So if you come across this in the future, you're out of luck. But if you've got another
Well,
month now, people.
they have late pledges and they have an active store.
So there you go.
So, but he does
But
this
you might not
obviously.
get the discount
Correct.
options on these,
Yes.
maybe. So
And I think
yeah,
it's really
yeah,
interesting that he must have found a different source given the tariffs.
yeah.
So anyway, I say that like he made it in China. I don't know where he made them. So
Yeah,
anyway, but they designed it and engineered it in Minnesota, and it's a really
sure.
cool family business.
That's awesome.
So
Oh, and you can get it with Elvish writing on some of these. These are These are fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, I don't have the real fancy wooden, perimeters. I just got the basic black.
Yeah.
The
But and
basic.
it takes 5 years of gaming amazingness. So yeah, that's
Yeah, I
very
mean,
cool.
literally, we've gotten a ton of use out of this thing.
Yeah, fabulous.
Okay, so
Yes,
that
sir.
is sort of the news and notes. I'd love to hear how things are going or went with Max.
Yeah, Max. No, it's yeah. So it's all done now. Now there's nothing. I'm still dealing with budgetary stuff and making sure people get paid. But the students have gone. They had a great time. At some point, I'll talk about some of their favorite games of Mayax. But one of the things that I thought was really fun about this Mayax is that we had an actual growth pattern that my students went through. A couple of them, particularly with deck builders,
Oh wow.
because yeah, because deck building, we think about this. Dominion's been out for a minute at this point. Yeah, and sure, it launched an entire genre, but we're used to it. It's like, yeah, no, I played Dominion I don't know, the first year it came out, and I thought, well, this is super fun. I immediately got Ascension instead when that came out. But it's proliferated. It's done a bunch of stuff. So my students were looking at Clank. I've got this big, library of games that I wheel in. I'm like, oh, Clank looks cool. It's, very D&D-esque. It's a dungeon, run kind of thing, and I was like, great. And they're sort of trying to read the rules. They're like, let me help you. Like, so you've done a deck builder before, right? And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, okay, before we do Clank, we're going to play Dominion. And Dominion was not easy. You sit down, you think, oh, it's you draw your 5 cards, then you buy and then do your actions, and then you move along. Or maybe it's the other way around. It doesn't matter. And you discard those cards. The new cards go over in the discard. You draw 5 more. You keep going until you get No, this is not something that is as intuitive as like a card sloughing game or hitting your friend with a brick. It's just
Do you do that often?
And you hit friends with bricks?
Yeah.
They're mostly foam. It's fine. Sometimes it's not foam,
Okay.
and then there are lawsuits.
Trying to remember if you've ever thrown a brick at me. Anyway, not important.
Oh man, we spent that 12 hours in the hospital. Oh, I guess the brain damage was real.
You?
Huh. Sorry about that.
Oh.
So yeah, but they started to get it, and one dude thought it was so amazing he was on his phone and ordering it before we got to the end of the game. So that was funny.
Guilty of that.
And so then, yes, we've had friends here for game night too who are like, "Can you get 4 a shuffle now?" So then they sat down and played Clank, and they're like, "Oh." The rest of it, point-to-point movement. It's a dungeon crawler. This all makes, this is cool. I got that. But the flow of drawing a hand, playing the hand, buying the things, this all makes sense now. So that was just kind of cool. And at the end of the MAX, one of the guys was like, yeah, I couldn't figure out what Clank was supposed to do. After we played Dominion, it just snapped into place immediately. So that was super fun. And then we also played, so Clank's, again, dungeon crawler, got that D&D vibe. They're really liking that. The other one, and we've got Mycelia over here behind me
See that?
Watching this. Yep. And it's a cozy little game that's about, and I think, let me see here. Oh, no, not a familiar designer, Daniel Greiner. And so it's mushrooms. You're playing mushrooms, mycelia, right? And you're using mushroom cards. And you are using mushroom cards to manipulate. You've got little personal boards where you're moving dewdrops from the board. There's one little spot where they kind of drain out from your board and show up on this entirely unnecessary but also delightful tree stump that when it fills up with all these dewdrops, you spin it around, the dewdrops all fall out. There's a die that tells you where some of them have to go back on your board. It's fantastic. Very, like, the toy factor is super high on this. It's adorable. And the mushrooms are adorable, although they're also based on actual mushrooms. So you can look up the actual mushrooms to see what they're based on. They have powers that are based on those kinds of mushrooms. One of the hilarious things of the game is it's all set in this forest, and you use money to buy, you play your mushroom cards, some of which give you money. You spend the money to get new cards, except the money is leaves. And you're like, why would you make leaves money in a forest? Because you can just scoop up a handful of cash and off you go. But yeah, so we had some good jokes about that because they're economists and they were just like, yeah, that makes no sense. As opposed to the rest of it making sense, right?
Yes. Acorns would have been better. They're a little bit more.
A little bit harder, so that's where you are. But what's more interesting about that game is that the hands work a little different. You have 3 instead of 5 cards. the cards that you buy go into your draw deck, so they're going to be the next thing you play.
Yep.
So just a couple, right? And unlike Clank, it's not point to point movement, it's more of a puzzle. And so it was great to have these conversations about, okay, so Dominion is our ur text, right? That is the beginning of it all, and everything else descends from that. But how does it work? Like Clank is an older game. It still has the draw 5, play 5 discard, right? Mycelia is younger. It has a slightly different take on this. And it was just fun to be able to work through these kind of levels of deck building and watch them figure this out and decide which version of it they liked better, made more sense to them, they resonated with, all of those kinds of things. So it was a really nice way to watch the sort of game literacy grow over the course of 3.5 weeks. And so yeah, it was a nice conversation. The students were into it too. They're like, oh yeah, no, I was thinking about that and thinking about, again, all those differences and which one they liked better or didn't. And so it was a good process to be with them for.
Well, that's awesome. And I like that you kind of took them to the degrees of, whether you want to consider the evolution of deck building or just the diversity of deck building. I think that's an interesting, way to kind of introduce that, because if you think about it, we all grew up playing some sort of a card game, whether you call it Go Fish, Old Maid, Uno, some were proprietary, like a la Uno, some were,
right.
You had just your normal deck of cards and you could just crazy eights
rummy,
or bridge
euchre,
or
crazy eights. Yep.
you bet it. Exactly. I mean, Kings in the Corner, that was always a big thing when we would go to the beach. We would play Kings in the Corner. And so these are things that just kind of come out of that organic, nature of play that we all, I don't want to say aspire to, because I think we kind of crave it.
Yep.
There are a lot of different ways. And so anyway, but I love that there's that whole, approach as to where it has fallen into this kind of thing. Because Dale and I play a lot of games where, you're deck building, but you're doing other things.
Right.
If you think about it, Wingspan, you're deck building. Not in the same way, but in a way, and Park is the same way. And so it's
we've got, and Laura and I really like Quest for El Dorado, which is a race with deck building and with the cards doing special things to, get you moving or to give you some sort of extra power or thinning your deck. And that was, played a game with some of the students at one point with Dominion, and I had just a super thin deck. They're like, how are you doing that? I'm like, one of the things you want to do is just get to your power cards as fast as possible. So, but also that sort of that strategy of, I want to do, I want to do a lot of card churn. So here are the cards that are going to let me just go through my deck very quickly, or I want whatever you want to do. And the games, again, as the games do different things. And what do you need? How do you tune your deck and how do you time your deck? And watching them sort of start to figure that out was super fun. And also thinking like the young woman played Clank and Mycelia, and she's like, I just like Mycelia better. It's just cozy. It's cute. I love mushrooms. I think mushrooms are adorable. I love how they work in the world. So, and you find your theme then, right? And like, this is the game I want to play because it's the ideas that I like or the just visuals that I like. So, yeah. I mean, we talk about,
No, that makes sense. I mean, I think that, when you find that style of gameplay, and the other thing too is that, deck builders can be very portable.
Yeah.
Most of the young people I run into when I say something about board games are like, have you played Cards Against Humanity or Exploding Kitten?
Yep.
And I'm like,
it's a stack of cards you can put in a Ziploc bag. So yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, that's good. I'm glad that Mayax seemed to be a success. I guess I guess that's your thing now. You're the game guy.
I am the game guy. Yes. Yep. Tabletop games. That's me.
See, now next year you got to figure out a way if we can, during the Mayax is maybe we do like a panel, or we do a live broadcast or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
From the class.
From the classrooms of Furman University.
I can come in and speak about DMing. I don't know.
Oh, no, that would be good because they're all very interested in RPGs, but a lot of them have not played RPGs and are both terrified and fascinated. So it's super fun, that last part of the class when we start doing.
Yeah, maybe like a subtle one shot or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll think about it. I would love to take a day off and come down there and do something like that, just
That'd
for
be
fun.
Fantastic. Yeah.
But anyway,
please do.
I digress.
And so the other thing that was funny about Mayax is I buy a bunch of games, we play, I put them down in front of them, and then a lot of them don't get played. And some of the ones that I bought last year got played this year. And I hope some of the ones that didn't get played this year will get played next year. But that whole, here's a game that I have and I'd love to play, but I haven't, that's a thing that happens.
Yeah, so I got a confession to make here, James.
All right.
Since we last recorded, I've been kind of busy.
Okay.
I flew out to Idaho for my niece's wedding and spent the week with my brother and did some stuff like that, and then just then I came and reconfigured my set, if you will, and that takes away gameplay. And I have a niece who's going to be having a baby, so my wife's been planning a baby shower, so she's been busy with that. And then this past weekend I had my 40th high school reunion. I'll let people do math off of that. And so we've done a lot of things. We just haven't played a lot of games. And I was like, how can I show up to a podcast to talk about what's on my table when nothing's been on my table, So I was like, I said to Dale, I said, listen, this is going to be a really short recording because I have nothing to talk about. She goes, well, why don't you talk about this or why don't you talk about that? And one of the things that Dale suggested was the things on our shelf of shame, which for those of you, for the uninitiated, the shelf of shame are board games that are on my shelf that are still in the shrink wrap.
Oh man. Okay.
And I have put together a list, not a comprehensive list. This is just a subset list of things that are still on my shelf that are still in the shrink wrap that I feel a little convicted by.
Okay.
So these are
in no particular
order. I only put 7 on here because in no particular order. Bear Mountain Camping Adventure. Now you would think, as much as I love parks and Indeed. Darwin's Journey, that Bear Mountain Camping Adventure would have made it on the table by now.
One would think this, yes.
It has not.
My dude.
This is a world where nature's grandeur meets the thrill of adventure.
Indeed.
Lies in the looming shadow of Bear Mountain, and now you, the player, is invited to embark on a remarkable journey through its untamed wilderness and Bear Mountain Camping Adventure. It's a board game. I backed it on Kickstarter. It looks beautiful. The artwork's amazing. The artist is Vecteezy. I don't know what that means. It's just one word, like Cher, Madonna, Vecteezy. But it's a Casey Matz game published by Sweater Bear Games. So I think that's pretty much self-published, I would think.
Yeah, that sounds like a single game.
But
game
beautiful
company,
game, very nice. 1 to 4 players, 50 to 90 minutes, ages 10 and up, weight 2 and a third, maybe 2 and a, I don't know, 2.15 out of 5, however you want to consider that.
Yeah.
I'm giving you the BGG stats on it.
Yeah, I'm loving the and it looks beautiful. The does it come with the molded trays and all of that? That's astonishing.
Yeah, no, it came. I mean, literally. I mean, here, let me kind of pop this out here for those who actually do watch the video. This, I mean, you can kind of see share. I mean, yeah, it comes with all that you see there, at least the version I got. A lot of punch outs, a lot of content.
Whew.
And like I said, it's a beautiful game.
Yeah.
I will say this about it. This is not in shrink wrap. I have opened this and have organized it. We have not played it. So that is the first one on my list of the Shelf of Shame. The next one is really two. Hamlet village building game. This was actually a reprint that I got as I backed it on Kickstarter. Okay. This is sort of a tile laying, building kind of game. But they also had an expansion, which is what drove this. But the original one was, when you think of a village builder, you sometimes think of a card tableau or static hex tile grids. Think again. Lots of buildings, all with different shapes, all fitting together in interesting ways. One central hamlet that the players contribute to, and with its own self-forming demand and supply economy. Villagers walking through the hamlet, delivering the food to households and building resources to construction sites. And one day, the church will finally be built. And the once little hamlet has become a fledgling town. Aww. So that's the premise. And then they had this lovely little by the lake expansion. You take your village building lakeside, form lakes, build boats, go fishing, take over the United Kingdom. No, wait, that's Vikings. Never mind. Ignore that. And feed your villagers seasonal meals that give them special abilities. Aww. So these,
awesome.
Yes, exactly. Popeye the Sailor, olive oil. It's great. So these two, so Hamlet had already been released. Hamlet by the Lake was the expansion, but of course I didn't have the original Hamlet. So when I backed it, I got them both, right?
Yeah.
And so there's just, hexagons and buildings and tigers and bears. Oh my. So interesting little piece. Next up was a game I was very excited about during the pandemic. Pest. And if you look at pestilence, you have this doctor's, medieval doctor mask in Pest. And in this one, our once great empire was struck by a devastating plague. I wonder where they got that idea from. Will you answer the call to save it? Once standing tall and great, we now need to rediscover and rebuild our fallen cities. There are still survivors amongst the ruins. So it's basically a fight against a plague and rebuild the empire. So think, pandemic meets Foundations of Rome. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Yeah. Okay. So it's it's beautiful. It's it's dark, of course, but it's beautiful in the way that they've put it together. And you would think that I would have gotten this out of the box right away.
I like the folks in the masks there. That was a fun shot.
Yeah. Yeah. So, they've got some minis involved here. It's just some really cool. Mm-hmm. I really want to get this one out.
Yeah.
So, just a few more on the list. Serengeti Sanctuary. 1 to 4 players, age 7 and up, takes 30 to 60 minutes. The game has a wildlife conservation theme, which we love those. We loved Endangered.
Clear. Yeah.
We've loved, there was one you had recommended to me a while ago that we ended up buying and taking to the beach and playing with the kids that they really liked. It was like Serengeti, but it was, you have the different animals and you're flipping them over and.
Yes. Yes. I know the one you're, and because everybody follows, it's kind of a bingo mechanism. You're like, here's the one I'm flipping over, then everybody has to find the one. And I know the one you're talking about. I cannot bring it to mind.
Sounds like Serengeti, but it's not. It's like, anyway, doesn't matter.
Yes.
But this
Indeed.
is obviously you've got some really great photographs of the
Yeah.
artwork.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, they've done a really nice job with it. And again, it was another one that I backed. And this was one of the ones that I backed it on Kickstarter, and it arrived relatively quickly.
Oh, good.
So, this was going back to the thing here. It's Spooky Tower Games is the publisher. And
Okay.
all the designers have the same last name of the Carters, so we'll call them the Carter family. Wait, that's a country.
Different Carter family.
They
Yeah.
have taken that a different way.
Uh-huh.
But conservationists work to expand their wildlife reserves in Africa's Serengeti. So I think it's it's got a lot of the themes that we like. We just haven't gotten it out on the table.
And is that also a co-op, or are you? Because I'm thinking like Endangered, because you had mentioned that, but
yeah, I don't think it's. I don't. It may very well be. I haven't played it, but
right.
but it was, according to the publisher, the game was the leading finalist in the Ravensburger 2023 Next Big Family Game.
Okay, well done.
So I don't know what that means, but it sounds impressive. There is a solo mode. So I don't know if there is a co-op mode. Literally, it is still in the screen grab. It's like right. I'm pointing at it.
I see.
I'm also pointing to the Monty Python's co-curricular medieval
yes.
program. Yes.
Yes.
Which is also right there.
Yeah.
This one, Henchmania, 2nd edition. Didn't know there was a first. This is a cross between Game of Thrones and Monty Python. Become a medieval lord and puppet master and use your monstrous and loyal henchmen who will do anything to help their master satiate their thirst, his thirst, could be her thirst, for prestige. A 2nd edition with lots of changes, new gameplay, new design, and even new 2 expansions to come, which were actually included in the thing. Yeah. So the artwork is very kind of cute, and
it's cartoony. Yeah, very cartoony.
Yeah, very much like I've seen this somewhere. But yeah, so Henchmen.
That looks
they've
hilarious.
been kind of Henchmania. It just looked kind of frivolous. There was a lot of frivolity when I looked at it. It's 2 to 5 player. It's I don't know if it's Game of Thrones. I don't really know if you're going to have a red wedding or.
It looks a little goofy for a red wedding, but
yeah. But
I mean, unless like your arm's off. No, it's not. And
yeah, the publisher is Jocus. I don't know how do you say that.
Okay.
But the designers and the artists are clearly French by the names that I'm reading that I'm not even going to try to pronounce because I'll just email.
No worries.
Vincent Joanneau, Jean-Pierre Nicolas. I'm feeling pretty good about that Joanneau.
That was good.
Yeah. Laurent Nicolas, which is probably related to Jean-Pierre Nicolas. So anyway,
Nicolas.
Henchmania, cute, little absurd. Now, I have a number of Vita Lacerda games that are still in the shrink wrap, but I instead decided not to highlight them here because that might be a completely separate episode of the shelf of Vita Lacerda shame.
Yeah,
and maybe I won't play any of those games until we get him to come on this show. So Vita, if you're out there listening to this, if you want me to play your damn games that I paid all this money for, why don't you come on our show? Eagle Griffin Games. Nothing. Moving on. Are you James, you're a little frozen on my end. I don't know if you can hear me or not. We ran into this last time. Hold on. We lost James. Well, folks, it looks like we had another technical issue where we lost James. I'm wondering if there's not like a thunderstorm in the area that maybe have knocked out his power of some sort. We'll see if he comes back in, and if so, we'll create a different ending. The last thing I was going to talk about, though, from my shelf of shame is Pendragon, the fall of a Roman Britain. And I will show you sort of what that looks like here. This is the reason I was talking about Vita Lacerda, is that this is a pretty challenging game, I would imagine. It's got a heavier weight of 4.5 to 5. It is a 60 to 360 minute gameplay, and it's 1 to 4 players, where it is volume number 8 in GMT's coin series, which transports us back to the 4th and 5th century AD in the embattled Isle of Britannia. Pendragon, the Fall of Roman covers the century of history from the first large-scale raid of the Irish to Pict and Saxon raiders and the establishment of successor kingdoms, both Celtic and Germanic. So it's a history-based game that is something I personally love from my time as a history major, but haven't really played a lot of games of that genre. So I'm really looking forward to getting Pendragon out of the shrink wrap and onto the table. Well, folks, I think that's going to wrap up another episode of Lay It on the Table. As per usual, I am Joe Mahaffey, and I am not bored. I am board gaming. And if James Engelhardt was here, he would say that he would hope that all ties break your way. And we will be back as soon as we can with another episode of Lay It on the Table, the Southern Board Game Podcast with the accent on Southern. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll talk to you soon.